Okay, so we've talked about the overall function of proteins, but now we need to talk about how are proteins made. And these are made, remember, these are polymers, biopolymers, and the monomer is amino acids. And so just like we did with sugars, we have a lot of different kinds of amino acids that can be put together in a polymer. So the definition of amino acid, so the word amino acid, you can tell what it's made of. So amino, as in amine. So we have an amine in there, and then we have acid, which is short for carboxylic acid. So as you can see in these general structures here, these are the same thing, just drawn two different ways. We have an amine. Ooh, let's make that box a little better. We have an amine and we have a carboxylic acid. And then there's one carbon in the middle in between the two. And then that carbon is connected to an R group. So this R group is what dictates the chemical behavior. So all amino acids are going to have the same amine, carboxylic acid, and then in the middle, that R group is all that's going to change. And that is what defines what it is as an amino acid and dictates its chemical behavior. So for reference, there are 500 naturally occurring amino acids, and then, but there are only 20 of which that are used to make proteins. So we call these the 20 common amino acids. And we will learn, you'll see later on the bottom of this page, actually, you'll start seeing some of those common amino acids that we will talk about even more. Another feature about amino acids is we have to think about the charges associated with them. So at physiological pH, which is 7.4, so that's physiological meaning like average in our bodies, the amine is going to be basic. So it's going to have a positive charge on it because it's stolen a proton, because it's a base. We've talked about amines in chapter 14. And then we have the acidic carboxylic acid, which I'm going to write as COOH, is going to have a negative charge. So overall, what this would look like is we'll have NH3 plus, we'll have our R group on here, and then we'll have our carboxylic acid with a minus charge. So at physiological pH, this is actually how the amino acid is shown. So we have charges associated with these complexes. So an isoelectric point is something we need to talk about then. So isoelectric meaning, iso meaning in the middle, electric meaning charges associated. So an isoelectric point is the pH where the charge on the amino acid is neutral. So you'll see that is what we were talking about above. It's physiological pH. The majority of the amino acids have a isoelectric point. So the point where the charges are equal. So that means that the point where you have one positive and one negative. So they cancel each other out. So the overall, it is neutral. There's something, I think it's a fun word, called Zwitter ions. And it means it has, it's a molecule. It doesn't necessarily just have to describe an amino acid, but it does describe an amino acid. And a Zwitter ion is a molecule with both a positive charge and a negative charge on their compound. Okay, so these are called Zwitter ions because they have both a charge, a positive and a negative charge, but they're still neutral. And then we have our 20 amino acids that are used to build naturally occurring proteins. So we talked about there's 20 common amino acids. So 11 of these 20 amino acids can be synthesized by our bodies. From the nutrients we take in, we can synthesize these amino acids, but 9 of the 20 have to come from our diet. So these are called essential amino acids. And then the R groups are all different in each of these amino acids, like we just talked about. And then based on that R group, you get the name. So we have our full name. There's 3 different ways that we have our name. We can have a full name. We can have a 3-letter abbreviation. Or we can have a 1-letter. Abbreviation. So all proteins, especially the common amino acids, they'll have a full name that you can call them, or a 3-letter abbreviation or a 1-letter abbreviation. And being able to understand how to use those and abbreviate these very, very long polymers into kind of codes is going to be important as we move forward.